Hey everybody, welcome back to theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Again, it's theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you subscribe, whether you're on YouTube or the blog. For those of you that are brand new and this is your first ever video that you're watching, thank you, first of all. Second of all, I'm not always this nasally sounding or congested. I've had this cold for the past couple of days, but I'll get over it. I feel okay. I actually sound worse than I feel. For those of you who may not know how this works, you can email me anytime, dan@theclinicaltrialsguru.com. You can also call or text me, 949-415-6256. Send me a question, anything related to clinical research or business in general. I'll keep you anonymous unless you specifically ask that I mention your name, which some people do. Okay, so today I'm going to try to do a little bit of a longer video. We'll see how long I can go and how my voice holds up. So the first question I got, it's what metrics or key performance indicators are the most important for a research clinic owner to have and to understand? What metrics do you personally use, if any? So very good question, thank you. Obviously you want to look at the overall profitability of your site, because this is a business, and at the end of the day, I don't care what kind of business you have, you're not going to have one for very long if you're not profitable, okay? That's just not the way business works, okay? You're going to go out of business if you have no profits. So obviously, the biggest KPI, or key performance indicator, is profitability. But how do you get to profitability? So I always like to deconstruct things into their smaller components. So a smaller component of overall site profitability, one metric that I particularly have always used and continue to use over and over again, is profitability per study. So as you may know or may not know, there's some studies that you can make a lot of profit on, there's some that you just break even on, and there's some that you lose money on. So the key to staying in this business for a long time and having a successful research clinic is to eliminate the ones where you're breaking even on and completely eliminate the ones you're losing money on, and just focus on, put all your resources into the ones that you are profitable on, okay? So breaking even's okay if you're trying to just make a certain sponsor happy in the hopes of getting more studies from that sponsor. But even in those cases, I would not really focus on just breaking even. And obviously you don't want to lose money ever. So profit per study is very important, and you won't know which study you're profitable on unless it's just very subjectively, unless you actually look at the budget, look at the numbers, look at what you're spending, what resources you're putting into that study, and then assessing the profitability there. So let's take, for example, just any study, okay? How many coordinators do you have on it? Those are your fixed costs. How are you paying the PI for that study? Are you paying that person a monthly guaranteed income, or is his or her profit based on a percentage of the study, and you only pay them when you get paid from the study? These are all key components for this. How much are you paying on transportation to get patients to and from the clinic? How much space in the actual research clinic are you dedicating to this study on average? And they don't have to be exact numbers, they can just be estimates, all right? But be fair in your estimations. And I know you might have other coordinators who are also doing other trials, but how much of their time is being spent, and be honest with yourself, how much of their time is being spent on this study versus another study? So I really like to look at profit per study, and just going back to the bigger picture of the profit at your research site, what I want to look at is all your monthly expenses, all your fixed expenses that you know you have to pay every month, things such as rent, things such as study coordinator salary, utilities, things like that. You want to put those there into an Excel sheet. And then you want to put your variable costs, like PI's percentage, petty cash for study participant payments, or study participant payments if you're writing checks. It doesn't matter. That's a variable cost as well. Site overhead, so things like equipment that you're using, toner, maintenance for the office. Those are all your variable costs. So you want to look at those things, and you want to be able to estimate. First of all, you won't need to do any estimating on your fixed costs, but on the variable costs, that's where you get into each individual study, and then you'll start making sense as to which studies you should really start focusing on. Are certain studies really easy to enroll subjects in, and others may not be, and others perhaps you're screen failing a lot of subjects. It may not make sense to allocate further resources to that study when it's much more predictable to enroll patients in another study. These are things that factor into the profitability per study metric. So those are the KPIs I look at. You can get into another KPI, which would be profit per employee, but I don't really like doing that because you may have a study coordinator who's working on a study just by chance. They're working on a study that happens to be more profitable, so therefore that the KPI for that coordinator will be higher, which on paper will make it seem like the profit that that coordinator is bringing to your clinic is greater than the other one. But again, that just may be by chance. It may not have anything to do with that particular coordinator. So I've experimented with those kind of KPI metrics in the past, but the only ones that I can really rely on are profit per study, because then I'll know what type of study that is and whether in the future I should take on more of those studies. And also at that present time, I'll know where to allocate more of my resources to, where if I come across a decision of whether to hire another study coordinator or some other support staff, is it because I need to allocate more resources to this particular study? And if it's a very profitable study, then it will make sense for me to do that. If I'm allocating resources to a study that I'm breaking even on or losing money in, it does not make sense for me to do that. And you really won't know that until you start breaking down each individual study and seeing the profit per study, right? So very good question. KPI is something that we should all focus on. And I really do believe it's profit per study is the metric. The metric we want to use. And I apologize, I sound way worse than I feel. Another question. If you were to enter an existing clinical research site as a new owner, what would you first focus your effort on? So other than what I just talked about, looking at overall profitability and then profit per study and eliminating the studies that are losing me money or just closing them out as quickly as possible and focusing all my efforts, I would even take the studies I'm losing money on, remove the coordinators from there, put them on the profitable studies. I personally, if I had no one else, would close out the break-even and the studies that I'm losing money off of as quickly as possible, without completely pissing off the sponsor, but just as quickly as possible, while still maintaining decent business relationship with that sponsor, and allocate those study coordinators that I'm paying a fixed income to, a fixed salary towards the profitable studies. Other than that, other than what I just discussed, I'd be looking at future studies, right? What future studies can I bring? I see that I have a few profitable studies here. I want more studies like that. I see that I have some studies that I have lost money on. I don't want any more studies like that. I'd be doing those kind of things, prospecting new studies. You can never go wrong by having more business. You can find out later that those new studies you brought in are not as profitable as the other ones, but you can never have too much new business, because chances are some of those studies are going to be profitable and are going to be worth your time. And quite honestly and quite frankly, those studies that are profitable are going to subsidize everything else. Okay, so it's going to allow you to take on studies that you're not so sure about because you have studies that are subsidizing those studies, right? So future studies, definitely something I would look at. This person was also asking about transposing the protocol with the budget and comparing versus actual cost. That's all part of profit per study metric, which I just discussed. Would I focus on SOPs and compare how the company is actually operating? Honestly, and this is gonna sound bad, if I'm just taking over a new site, I do not focus on SOPs. I focus on making sure we're profitable first and then worrying about SOPs. Even if that means me doing most of the work or working side by side in the trenches, so to speak, with the coordinators, because I have SOPs in my head and I'm not going to be worried about creating an actual SOP for us to follow if we're not profitable. Right? So my first focus is stop the bleeding, meaning stop the cash flow bleeding, making sure we're getting profit, so making sure we're having a surplus of profit, and then worry about laying the foundations down and creating a system for my coordinators to build upon so that I can then step out of the trenches, no longer have to actually do the coordinating work myself, unless that's something you want to do, and a lot of you guys do want to do that and do want to create a lifestyle business for yourself, at least initially, and you have no problems being the study coordinator. That's not my goal ever, but I'm not afraid to roll up my sleeves and do that if I have to. So quite honestly, profit is my first and major concern. Once I've taken care of that and stopped the hemorrhaging of cash, so to speak, which most businesses actually, especially when someone just acquires a site, there's a reason that owners sold, and it's usually because it's not as profitable as it could be, or it could be just barely breaking even, or it could be losing money. And so that's the first objective, is to make sure that it's profitable. After that, then you start building the foundation. And that would include SOPs and business plans and things of that nature, although I don't really even like business plans. But SOPs definitely are important going forward and for building a future for that site. But they're not priority number one. Priority number one is making sure that you're profitable, okay? And then, of course, continuing a relationship with sponsors and CROs. So the number one thing that you're as a research site providing to the sponsors and CROs is clean data for their studies, okay? So you can't do that. You're not going to provide very good data if you're losing money. You're going to be able to provide good quality data, clean data, and you're going to be able to enroll more subjects for that sponsor or CRO if you're profitable. And then you work on the SOPs and all that other stuff. And some people may disagree with me. Some people may say, hey, how can you do anything without having SOPs in place? And the answer is because you're going to be following SOPs, but they're going to be in your head, and it's up to you to work with your study coordinators on understanding those SOPs, even if you don't have them formally written down, even if that means just focusing on one protocol and enrolling subjects. Get that study stable, get your company stable, get the cash flow and the business of your company stable, and then you can work on setting up SOPs. That is by far, in my opinion, the most important thing you can be doing, okay? Next question. As far as launching a new phase 1 clinic, how do you recruit patients? Do you engage patients? Believe it or not, recruiting patients for phase 1 studies is really easy. The hardest part is getting the studies. So phase 1, and by phase 1 I mean healthy volunteers. So I'm not talking about those phase 1 oncology studies, and I'm not talking about those phase 1 CNS studies. Okay, those could be difficult and quite challenging, in fact, to enroll subjects for. But phase 1 healthy volunteer studies, the easiest part of the whole business is enrolling the patients. Those are healthy volunteers between a certain age. They need to be really healthy as far as BMI, triglycerides, everything has to be almost perfect. So you're really limited to college kids. And most of these phase 1 clinics around my town, around your town, are going to be enrolling college kids. Sometimes you get into those ethnic bridging studies where they're only seeking study participants that are Asian or Hispanic. Those can get a little more challenging, and you can certainly do some Instagram or Facebook direct, very specific Facebook targeted ads for those demographics. But as far as phase 1 healthy volunteer studies, the easiest part of running a phase 1 clinic is getting the subjects. The hardest part after finding the studies is the operations, right? How do you make sure that your staff is collecting the data and following the protocol specifically? Some of these protocols have PK blood draws every 5 minutes, and you have to make sure things are done according to protocol to the exact minute. Those are challenging. Also, sometimes you need to actually collect an ECG at a certain time following a dose of the study drug. That becomes very challenging when you're enrolling multiple subjects. You've got to get very organized. This is now where you need to start investing in your SOPs and training your staff on your SOPs and having good quality control systems in place. Recruiting the subjects is the easy part in these studies. All right, so hopefully this helps answer you guys' question. Hopefully it helps you guys out there if you have similar types of questions. As always, email me, dan@theclinicaltrialsguru.com, and also call or text 949-415-6256. Keep following me on all the social networks, and I promise I don't always sound like this. Thank you for bearing with me, and I'll see you guys next time. Dan from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Take care.